Hello, everyone. Welcome back here on Sunday. Welcome back to Awaken Your Inner Genius. We have a big lesson tonight, but as we always do, let's go ahead and start with our meditation. You see our panel that's with us today, and let's just become right settled here in this moment, and Ken will lead our meditation tonight.
Okay, we're just going to quiet down and unwind, and we do this by desire. I'm going to start off with a little passage from Divine Iliad that talks about how to enter into that state, and it goes like this. The glory of thy anointing light descends upon me. My soul quickeneth as that light surrounds me, as that light shines through me, and that light encompasses me. I am dissolved in thy light. Thy light and my light have become one. I am immersed in thy light. I am in thy light, knowing thy light. And here I say, be thou with me, so that I would not be myself alone. And in a meditation, it's just unwinding, trying to unwind our thinking. And it's done by desire. And we desire stillness. And it's in the stillness that we hear that inner voice. And in order to shut the brain off, we don't think, we don't focus, we unfocus. So the best way to do it is think of an unwinding of a toy, an unwinding of a clock or a spring. And just let your thoughts get longer and longer and longer by desire. It's called decentrating, which would be the opposite of concentrating. And we decentrate by desire. Desire to be in the flow of that ocean. Feel the wave. Be the wave. Desire to be one with the stillness of the ocean. And let the sounds be your sounds. As you align yourself in the omnipresence. It is always right here, right now, talking to us. Just let yourself desire stillness. Just keep unwinding. Almost like daydreaming. It's a timeless moment when you feel that stillness. All right, now bring yourself back, and now we'll do some concentrating and start thinking about what kind of lessons we have tonight. We'll bring Kimberly back on to guide us through as we navigate this next lesson, lesson 39.
All right, lesson 39, here we are. So let us remind us all about the Awaken Your Inner Genius. So glad to see so many of you back on all of the channels, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. And let's tune into our quote that is the cornerstone of what we do. John, if you would share that one with us.
I would be glad to. Mediocrity is self-inflicted, and genius is self-bestowed.
Fantastic. And Jim, if you'll share with us the next one as a reminder to us all.
If you can read and count to 9, you can master the secrets of the universe.
We want to keep centering ourselves on these two premises here, and just wanted to remind everybody that we are simply a group of Russell students that have come together. You'll see that we focus on the man who tapped the secrets of the universe. That is the on-ramp there, as you'll see in the book on the next screen. And that is the on-ramp to the home study course. And our goal is to what? John, what are we doing in these 9 months together?
What we're doing is we're trying to get this message out to the world. And it's the only one of its kind. So if you're ready to expand your knowing, your consciousness, this is what you've been waiting for right here. And we're going to bring it to you live through Awaken Your Inner Genius.
Awaken Your Inner Genius, 1 unit per month. We are now in Unit 10. And Ken, if you would, just give everyone a snapshot of where we are here in Lesson 39.
Okay, we are lesson 39. We're at the photosynthesis and the geometry of space, and we will be talking about how that works. So when you think of synthesis, think of tree leaves and how they absorb the sunlight, and they're dark when there is no sun, and then when the sun hits that plant, how it lightens up and that plant absorbs that sunlight. That's called photosynthesis.
All right, and then Karen, you in the next slide, you're going to see just a quick snapshot of everything that's being covered there in Unit 10. And Karen, you once again have us a visual journey for the end of today, do you not?
I do.
And what was just to give them a quick glimpse so they can be looking forward to what they're going to watch at the end of the broadcast. This one was a big lesson for you to even pull together.
Yeah, it was, and I didn't do it in a typical way. I really tried to keep the science and punctuate the optical nature of Walter's message and how everything is light, but everything is through different lenses and different layers of the lenses and the color spectrum, which is also part of the periodic table.
All right. Well, speaking of lenses, I have all kind of lenses. So, I mean, this whole program was about lenses. And so whether it's heart lenses or whether I've got my 3D lenses right here, whether I have my reading glasses, those lenses, whether I have my blue lenses or my personal favorite, my fancy lenses. It's all about lenses tonight, isn't it?
Well, Kimberly, that's wonderful that you have those, but you don't have these big lenses, I can tell you.
All right, we're all about lenses tonight, so let's have a little bit of fun, shall we? So let's go ahead and dive in. We've got a big lesson tonight, and let's go ahead and dive in, hoping you have your copy of your home study course. We are here at Unit 10, Lesson 39. And Jim, I'm going to jump to you first, please, because we start right off with their photosynthesis and the geometry of space. And I'm going to ask you, if you would, to read that first paragraph on down to the green highlighted sentence.
It is commonplace knowledge that everything which comes out of the earth, both vegetable and animal, issues from seed. We know that the fathers of men place their seed in the mothers to produce both fathers and mothers of the human race. So it is also with animal life. In vegetable life, the seed is inserted in other ways, such as pollen being carried by bees from one flower to another. But we do not refer to that process as being the work of fathers and mothers due to the failure of science to give recognition to the fact that the divided universe of pairs of opposites, which issues from the zero undivided stillness of space, is the sex principle of all creation. The sex principle is the most basic fact of creation.
All right, so let's stop right there, panel. That's a pretty powerful statement. Ken, you want to chime in before we continue? That statement, the sex principle is the most basic fact of creation.
Yeah, it is duality. It represents the male, female, up, down, compression, expansion, anode, cathode. So in the vegetable kingdom, believe it or not, there is a sexual interchange. Even in the mineral kingdom, there's a sexual interchange. So everything is about that duality and the male-female principle, which we will call a sexual interchange.
So, John, let us continue with that. If you would, read the next few sentences and then add to your discussion. I'd like you to read the yellow highlighted all the way through where I have the yellow brackets, because that explains it even further.
It may be that the inability to recognize the sex principle in the mineral world was the stumbling block which caused that to happen. We say to you, however, that the mineral kingdom also comes into existence through the seed of fathers and mothers interchanging. The underlying secret of all seeds is that their basis is the inert gases, which are in the zero column of the periodic table of the elements of matter.
So let's pause there for a moment, John. So for everyone who's listening in, I believe myself as in my 4th year of studying this, that the most important comment out of these past few sentences is the sex principle is the most basic fact of creation. So the sex principle was a really new perspective for me, having not been exposed to this kind of teaching. Jim, your thought?
Well, my thought is that this point, these students, new and old, should have this in front of them as they go through these lessons. It clearly shows what they're talking about. This is the 9-octave chart of the elements. If you can count from 0 to 9, you can master the secrets of the universe.
I
And
just happen to have one.
Good. And that's the sexual interchange that they're talking about within each octave and within all octaves as a whole. Everything that exists, every body that is comprised of these elements.
Now, let's take Jim's chart and look down on it from the top. And we have this chart. Isn't that beautiful? The grand symphony of creation.
So for everyone that's new listening to this, so don't be intimidated by these charts. So we'll be talking more about this. This is going to be revealed in the next few lessons. And it really is fascinating how it all begins to come together when you start to understand. So right now, I'd like to invite everybody to please place in the chat box the sex principle. The sex principle. Become very, very, very comfortable with that phrase. And what does that mean, the sex principle? John, is that mated pairs? I mean, give it to us simpler. What is the sex principle?
The sex principle evolves from the undivided God, the stillness. So if there was no action, if there was no division of thinking mind, there would be no creation.
Okay.
All right. So thinking divides the undivided. And like Ken mentioned earlier, we have the red, the blue, we have compression, we have expansion, we have male, we have female. And that interchange, which is constant and ongoing forever, is the sixth principle of the universe. And the Russell state in the lessons this evening. So whether it's a plant or whether it's the sun, it's the same principle. And that's the beauty of these teachings. That's why they call it universal principles, right? And I do want to say something here, since it was touched on in that paragraph. The inert gases are the least known thing to science. They don't understand that those 9 gates is where the sex principle evolves from and returns to on an ongoing and forever basis, and it is a sequence. So that's about as simple as I could make that.
Well, so for everyone who's on listening, I want to say a gracious thank you, and let us know how you're doing this evening. If you would go ahead and place in the chat box, how are you feeling this evening? Are you feeling good? Are you excited? Are you tired? Just let us know how you all are. There's a bunch of you on there. We want to be sure to connect with you this evening and see all of your names about where you are. The thing about all of these and the posters and the illustrations that Walter Russell gifted us is that when you begin to study this more and more, it's actually very exciting. Karen, don't you think? I mean, you've been dealing with some of the illustrations for quite some time, and I see that you keep finding new ways to use the illustrations, and as it expands, as your knowledge and understanding expands.
Yeah, also not to make it redundant, but to try to make sure that there are multiple ways of looking at it, though even though there's only one, but there's different ways people in the art world have actually done some really beautiful things to actually help illustrate.
All right, lovely. I see you, Rita. We see you, Bonnie, Linda, Kenneth. We see a number of you here with us. Jeannie, very good to see you. Well, let's continue, shall we? So let's go on to the bottom of page 754. And I want to read this section. It's highlighted about the middle of the ways. And then, John, I'm going to ask you to go into that next paragraph where I have the green. But I'm going to read the yellow. Invisible gases also have fathers, and mothers. These are of still lower potential, for they issue from the unknown and uncharted inert gases below helium. The Russell charts show these gases. They will appear later. So for everybody, just breathe into it. You don't have to understand this yet. The Russells are going to take us one step at a time. Okay? John, if you would share that next paragraph.
All right. You want me to start with it is commonplace?
Sure.
All right. It is commonplace knowledge that all vegetable and animal life unfolds from their seed and return to it. Everyone is familiar with the many acorns of the oak, the many seeds of the maple, the flower, and of man himself. But he is not familiar with the fact that every gas and mineral likewise refolds into its inert gas-based seed. They all do, however. To prove it, pass a high voltage current through a tungsten filament enclosed in an electric bulb, or better still, through an evacuated tube. The residue will be helium. Now that next line there, the inert gases are the heaven to which all things return when they die. So again, the inert gases are so important to creation, but they're very seldom spoken of. Even my Karen, as an as a chemical engineer, she cannot grasp that the inert gases are actually the wombs of creation.
Well,
Science
so
hasn't gotten there yet.
let me ask you a question, because this idea of inert gases, I want to encourage everybody to put the phrase in the chat box, inert gases, INERT. So that was a very interesting phrase for me as a new student. I was uncomfortable with that phrase. I didn't get it. And even as I've been studying it, it's been difficult. But I have to tell you, when I was in the Universal One over this past week, there was something that came through that was really, really eye-opening for me. So I want to ask a question. In the Universal One, it refers to the inert gases also as master tones. Okay, so please, so John, if you could, to me, when I recognized that inert gases were also master tones, all of a sudden, to me, that was the universe was singing. I could see the symphony of creation. So if inert gases were not comfortable for me, then I could refer to them as master tones. So I want to make sure that we all understand that's interchangeable. Can you comment on that?
In this chart, I wish I could blow it up for you, but you'll see where do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do repeats itself through the inert gases as the master tones, and that is where all music began from, is these master tones. I think it's called the music of the spheres.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
All right. So very funny that you should say that, because here's the thing is I'm going to send James a link here, and I'm going to ask everybody to play this, because it's funny that you brought that up. I was up in the middle of the night for 2.5 hours studying and preparing for this lesson. And I actually
Kimberly, were you trying to tell us that you're trying to stay focused with this lesson?
I was trying to stay focused. And so I'm going to ask James if he would actually bring up, let me see if I can possibly do it. There is a great song there. Let's see if I can possibly share my screen. James, I just sent you a link. Can you come off mute and tell me if you received the link for me? Because I do think it's very important that we play this video right here. James?
It's not from the sound of music, is it?
I think it's in the main comments. If you put it in the other chat, I can copy and paste it.
Okay, great.
Paste it from there.
All right, so I will, let's try that, because I think this is important. What it literally was, it's as easy as music. So I'm bringing this up to us all because the inert gases equals master tones. Am I saying that properly as a newer student?
Well, they're one and the same.
They're one and the same. That's what I wanted to get in my head. But for me, to be honest with you, John, I understood master tones much better than I understood inert gases. So James, are you ready? James is working on it.
I'm pulling it up now. So we'll see if it lets me play the audio. Give me just a second.
Okay. Jim, I see you wrestling a dog there. Are you safe?
He's been fed, and now he's happy.
Hey, while we're waiting, it does a little bit of explanation here.
Please, go ahead.
There are 9 of those inert gases.
Yes.
They step up their potentials in mathematical ratios from the 1st to the 9th. And what this has all helped me to respond is in them, densities increase in the outward direction by pressures exerted within. They correspond to the rings of light heretofore described as cyclonic centripetal vortices, as we talk about these centripetal vortexes all the time. So the solids issue from the inner gases. So all the solids, just like John said, are made from those inner gases. The inner gases is almost like thinking of like a film, and God's light projects through those inner gases, and then an image is created, a product, a form, a density starting at the first gas, which is helium. So what it does is each one of those steps up in density as you get to the 4.5 carbon, like Jim talks about. But it's a building process, and within that is the pattern of all those elements in each octave. So that's why they call master tones and the inert gases.
So D. Tonkin is mentioning in the chat box about a volunteer, Tim Gillespie. He actually taught on the tones, and so they have a science messenger meetup every single month. You can find that on the events page of philosophy.org. And Tim used to teach many of these things, very, very powerful things. So James, if you could weigh in, are we good or not? Or I'm going to give up on the idea.
Should be. I'll give it a try.
All right. So you
See if it
remember,
plays the audio.
I kept being told creation is child's play. This was a song that was given to me in the middle of the night. No sound.
I knew it was going to be the sound of music.
I'm convinced. All right. So James, we'll try it again.
So you don't hear any sound?
No sound.
No. Yeah, I don't know why it's
All
not
right.
playing.
Okay. So maybe Joey and them can figure
work
that
on
out.
that.
Let's go ahead and continue. But for those of you who want to try it, this song is exactly what I was shown to help me understand the periodic table, John. So let's keep going for everybody.
Perfect.
All right. So 755. So Ken, if you would, let's go ahead and skip down to that second paragraph on page 755. I have it in blue brackets there. And as they went on to describe the inert gases, what were they trying to bring home there with the blue brackets right there in 755? Yes, all of this goes.
All of this goes to show the simplicity of this new science. For all effects of motion follow the same pattern and principle. All effects parallel each other in their construction. They all multiply cold and divide heat. This principle is demonstrated in our new laws of thermodynamics.
And continue on to the next one, please.
Yes, thank you. This process of nature constitutes the principle of photosynthesis, the process of growth and decay of all matter and all life on Earth and in the whole universe. It is God's bookkeeping system. It faithfully records every thought and every action and every growing thing on Earth and photographs them in the seed of those unfolding, refolding things by that process which we call life and death.
So let's stop there and talk about that. Jim, you want to chime in? And then I'm going to go to John and Ken.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Each let's go back a little bit to where Dr. Lao stated. The inert gases are what we call heaven. We are generated into body from that heavenly point at the beginning of each octave. We radiate to the point of maximum compression in each octave, and then we radiate back to the adjacent inert gas back to heaven. And this happens continuously forever. So this is true of, remember, every breath. You come in from stillness, you draw into stillness, you re-give from stillness, and go back to stillness. That's what the inert gases represent. So the feminine masculine interchange within each octave is present. You see the first half of the octave leaving inert gas, the first half of the octave is dominant masculine generating. The second half is dominant feminine radiating. Give, re-give. This is true of every octave, and this is true of all octaves in their entirety.
Okay, John, you want to add to that?
Yes, what I will reference for everyone is, for example, they mentioned about the acorn earlier, or we could take any kind of flower that you want to represent, okay? So every movement of that tree, of the branch, of the leaf is recorded in its soul seed, all right, in its inert gas, and it's there. And it is photoed, if you will, in that inert gas, and there it is. And Ken uses the cinema example all the time, and that's really what is happening. Then the inert gas releases and puts that acorn on the screen and let it unfold in the pattern that it is. And that's what separates in the animal and the vegetable kingdom. Some plants are more hardy than others.
Yes.
Okay. But that's recorded over time.
So this illustration, and then I'll go to Ken and ask Karen to comment. This illustration was really important to me as a new student. And in fact, when we did the Russell experience and we had multiple classes here, I would actually give people acorns, because we understand this on one level. We sense we can only hold the acorn. We see the acorn. We know it's an acorn. We cannot see the oak tree, yet we know the oak tree is seated within the acorn. So we have no problem understanding that that kind of magnificence is seated within this tiny acorn. So why?
I'm sorry, but I was just going to say, only God can take a 50-ton oak tree and put it in an acorn.
That's a good one.
So when you think about the magnificence of an oak tree here in this acorn, why can't we as human beings understand that our magnificence is destined to unfold in the same kind of way?
Yes.
Ken?
Yeah, and then you can hold up that acorn there, love, if you would. And now let's forget the tree and let's look at that acorn as you or me, a human being, right? So we talk about reincarnation principle. We talk about there is no death. So how is the thoughts, feeling, and actions recorded in that seed pattern? It has to have a place to be recorded so that it can be reprojected for endless repetitive cycles. So just like within each and every one of us, we have our own gaseous locking bar, inner gases that represent and make up our bodies that are projected by desire, our desire to unfold. And then God gives us that light, which we use to project the image of ourselves, sort of like, again, going back to the negative on a camera. You go back to the olden days of a camera and you think of that negative films or 35 millimeter films, and you had to pull out that film. If you put sunlight in it, you ruined the film. It's overexposed. But when you open up the camera, the aperture opens up just enough to allow the imaging that's being sent through that lens into that film, and it's projected. And that's basically represents where, like, how do I, when I come back in this life as a baby, how do I know, I mean, what makes me feel inclined to art? What makes me feel inclined to music or to those things is the inner gases of my prior lives are recorded in the pattern that are going to be reprojected every time I get a body, every time I desire a bodily form.
Oh, okay. And I would say, if some of you, and Karen, I'll ask you to comment in just a minute, and it could be considering that the master tones are recorded. So I've been feeling for quite some time, I completely relate to this whole idea of the illustrations behind John, the grand symphony of creation. I've known that we're each a song in the symphony of creation. That's why Karen always captures uni-verse. We're all one song, right, Karen?
Yep, that's it. So here's what I think makes it also simple to understand. When we think of gases, we need to understand also they're nothing but particles. And the particles arrange in different geometric configurations, and that's their form. So a particle, it's like the next issue we're doing is water. Water is nothing but a bunch of bubbles. And these bubbles arrange, and they make the periodic table. And I don't know if we can see this. As they build, they go through positive and negative. If you look at a leaf of a plant, you will see that it goes from positive to negative to positive. It literally climbs up. A leaf is not next to each other. They climb. One goes here, one goes there, just like a river does. But they build in their material manifestation, just like we're little and then we grow. It's no different than the periodic table that you see of Walter Russell's. It starts, right? So when you actually look at it, you can see the positive and negative flow. You can see if you start looking at a plant, it oscillates left to right where the leaves grow. When I figured that out, it was interesting. And depending on the compression will make a difference whether you get big leaves or skinnier leaves. And it's the same thing with humans. We are, if you look at the Eastern tradition, they'll tell you you're either a Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. You're either going to be more sturdy to the earth, which is more solid. You're going to be more of a Vata, which is more reaching to the sky, which is more like the airheads, not meaning that bad way. And then you have some people that are more redhead, more red face at the pittas, and they're more fiery. So there's a constitution that goes along with the chemicals of all of it. It's all
Interesting.
intertwined. That's why the minerals and us, and because we're all made of the same stuff. That's why we decompose and then we go back. We go back
Okay.
to the original source into our little cube where we're nice, our little square, we're squared off until we start spinning out again
Yes.
and expressing our song. And every time we spin, depending on the rate, it creates a different geometry, which creates a different tone. And that is even happening on a universal scale.
Okay, so a lot to think about here in this first part. We're getting ready to go to a break. Two things I want to mention. When we can return from the break, we're going to go to the bottom of page 755, and we're going to be talking about action. Okay, a result of your decisions. But before we go to that, I'm going to ask the panel, John and Jim. So on the presentation that I did last summer, August, when I talked about cosmic romance, I share about a memory I had when Ken and I met, and whatever the ethers are on the other side, but that we were two bubbles. We both have memories of being two bubbles or two spheres coming together. And I described it as creator land. And the more I think about it now that I have a deeper understanding in this chapter, I wondered if we were inert gases that came together. So I'm just laying that down. I'm curious when you return. Let's go ahead and take our first 3-minute break. Everybody stand up and get oxygen because we're just getting started.
Your vibes recognized each other.
I rang your master tone.
You did.
Y'all mute.
And you rang mine.
Mute. All right, if you'll find your way back, please. And want to say a thank you for one of the comments we have here. Love this time on Sundays to understand this. So thank you very much. And do remember we have the ability to do super chats and things like that in the chat box. So if you have a chance, James will put the instructions in there about how to do that. We also have, Dana says, the most simple scale of master tones, C, B, D, F, G. He's tying in the octaves. Thank you very much, Dana. And Bonnie says, wow, just in general to the conversations that we're talking about. And you know what, Dee, I was thinking that in one of the future episodes, I'll actually bring a video of Tim Gillespie. He has since refolded, and he was such a remarkable volunteer here for the University of Science and Philosophy. He did so much work, didn't he, John? And John, I'm asking my team to all unmute, and that I would like to just to honor some of the things that he said. Right, John?
Yes. Matter of fact, Tim was essential in helping me recreate the Grand Symphony of Creation. And it's one of my favorite things that I found in the archives. And he was so good with the computer and
Right.
enhancing things and so on. So yeah, he'll be missed.
He was, and we'll actually even we have an interview that we had a chance to do with him before he refolded, and we'll actually post that in the upcoming weeks. I want to honor him and all the work that he did to do so much work here at the USP. So let's go ahead down here to the bottom of page 755, and Jim, I'm going to ask you if you would read. It's the second paragraph from the bottom. It starts with the familiar phrase. So it is that paragraph with the blue circle, the familiar phrase which reads.
The familiar phrase which reads, as you think, so you become, is not quite true. A man may think great thoughts and not become what he thinks. Neither will his children. The phrase should read, as you do, so you become. You are the result of your decisions. If you do what you think, you will also build a better body to do those things. And the better you build your body, the better it will be enabled to fulfill your desires. For desire is the basis of all motion by you and or the universe. And in the Divine Iliads, they made the statement was all man. I'm sorry, that's incorrect. Go ahead, I'm good.
Okay, so they say, desire ye which you will, and behold, it standeth before thee. So
Thank
reads the Iliad message, but it also demands that you use your strong right arm to fulfill your desire, as exemplified in the message of God will work with you, but not for you. It is in this manner that you will fulfill your own destiny, your own identity. And I want to read that next paragraph, and Ken, I'm going to ask you to comment. It is desire which gives you the kind of body you need to fulfill your destiny. A musician would not desire to build the body of a pugilist. What is a pugilist? Does anybody know?
Fighter.
Oh, thank you very much. That was a new word for me. Neither would a runner or a skater. Desire is the basis of the healing principle. For desire for normalcy will give you a normal body if you do the things which fulfill your desire. So, Ken, as a 30-year student, these two paragraphs actually hit you a little differently today.
Yeah, they really do, because we are what we think, and how often do we hear that, especially in this new age stuff? Think yourself into wealth and you'll become wealthy, and but what the Russells teach is that not if you don't reach out for it. Right? You can think it all you want. You can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you don't produce that idea, then the idea just stays in the idea world. It's about manufacturing that idea in duality, which is part of creating. And desire is the key, is what they're helping to understand. When you talk about the master tones or the inner gases, it's when we are reincarnated as human beings. I like the overview. It's like, I don't come back and know that my name was Ken Pearson. I was born this way, and I lived at this address in this house. What I come back is that the master tones, like I love music, I love art, the things that construct who we are. Those are our master tones of the brushstrokes. The nuances don't come in detail. So when you think of that, think of it as all that's necessary. And anything that's not necessary is not brought forward or represented and brought through. So it's helping me to understand that, we are what we desire to be. But if you don't take an action to fulfill that desire, then that will never happen. So this really hit me hard today. It talks about it, God will work with you, but not for you. And it certainly says in the Divine Iliad that, desire what you will and stand before you, but it will not come to thee without reaching out for it with thy strong arms. This says
That's
a right
what I was
arm.
That's what you were thinking about, Jen?
That's what I was trying to remember. Thank you, Ken.
There you go. So Ken, I'm
Yes.
curious. I just wanted to ask you, you have in your name, Kim Pearson Illuminated. What does that mean to you when you have it on the screen?
That to me means lit up. Like I'm on fire. I'm lit up. I got a light on. The light is on, man. I'm illuminated. I am on. The light is on. I've been turned on to this message. Bonzo's going to say it's something else, but I'm going to tell you right now. To me, it means like I'm on fire for this message, for life. And to me, the biggest thing is coming from the life that I came from. Change seemed so hard. It seemed so difficult and impossible. And here in this way of life, in this home study course, it literally walks you through of how to change and ultimately become the best version of you've ever wanted to be. That to me, I just, there's nothing I can compare it to. It's just like John said, this has never been done. There is nothing like this. But bear in mind, this is University of Science and Philosophy. So you can think Yale and Harvard, and they wouldn't even begin to compare to the knowledge that
That's
you're
true.
getting in this home study course. Their books couldn't even begin to touch what's in here. So that's the most important thing. That's academic training. This is life training. This is all about creation, training of creation and natural law and science. Natural, not unnatural or awkward. So desire, for me, I found out desire is my strongest force. As long as I learn how to harness desire, there's nothing that we can't bring into our lives if we desire strong enough that motivates action. Desire backed by action.
All right, John, you wanted to weigh in.
Yes. As we
James
look,
fixes the screen. Thank you.
yeah, as we're looking where Ken is sitting, and you recognize that he has Ken Pearson illuminated. Well, to be illuminated, it could be candlelight or it could be the brightness of the sun, right?
Yep.
But if you'll notice, Ken is working his way up because he has a 360-degree illuminate right above him, Dr. Russell. So that's what he's working towards. So at least he's got everything on the right order there.
Well, I wanted to ask him that question because truly, when I was asked to describe the home study course, I can describe it in 4 words: turn your light on. And so to me, that even when we were prepping for kicking off the Awaken Your Inner Genius, that's really how I described it. So I asked Ken one day why he put that word, because it wasn't illuminate, it was illuminated. And I knew there was a reason behind that. So I was just curious. All right, so let's continue our studies here, shall we? So let's go on down here. I'm going to mention before we get into the geometry of space, and it says where I have the little hash marks there, we again repeat that desire is in the seed. An oak or a pine tree on the coast at Bar Harbor may not think, but it becomes sturdy, then one a mile away from it. Desire to resist the winds awakens that desire to resist them, for gravity gives to all things the will to survive. Mind centers all things, therefore mentality affects all things. All right. So now we're going a little bit deeper, and wow, are there some nuggets, beautiful nuggets in this one. So John, if you would, we're going to go down here to the geometry of space, and we're going to take this slow because these next few pages were power packed.
I would like to say something before I
Sure.
read this. Is there are people watching that are scientifically minded and maybe in the scientific field. Okay. So you can take this knowledge to whatever degree that you want. But for our audience, we're just trying to make this sensical for everyone so that they can look about them and see the everyday examples of what we're speaking of. So I didn't want people to get too wrapped up in hearing maybe new terms and descriptions and so on. And so here we go.
Yes. Well, before we do that, John, 2 things. So I want to reiterate to everyone, this is a self-study course. So this was meant to be a self-study course. The only reason we came together was just to assist others on their journey. So nothing can replace your own, the knowledge, the insight, inspiration you receive at your own time studying this course. Is that right, team? That's what was very, very important for all of us. And we simply are giving you food for thought to consider and expand your thinking, which, by the way, let's go ahead and answer Rita's question. Rita says this: please explain the phrase, gravity gives to all things the will to survive.
That was a question I had when I was doing it. So I appreciate, Rita, you asking the question. So seasoned students, have at it.
All right, John.
Okay. I was thinking about this earlier today, the word gravity, and to help people understand that just like a carpenter will have a tool belt, right? Measuring tape and hammer and a punch and various things. Well, our creator has tools at his disposal as well. But gravity, we have gravity. We got lenses. We got cubes. We got spheres. But gravity is the same as God. It's synonymous with God. Okay. So instinct, that's why we're getting into this, but so gravity is what instills or communicates instinct to the vegetable and the mineral kingdom. And actually, it's what connects us early on in our unfolding. All right. And then we pass beyond that to inspiration. But in the beginning, that's what gravity does. Gravity is synonymous with God, and it is a tool in which God uses to communicate with the physical material world.
Okay, John, I like that. Just did that description. Jim, anything you want to add to it? Jim's on mute, so I'm assuming that is a no.
Sorry, I have to do that because of the dog in the room.
Okay.
John's
Anything you want to add?
Correct. I agree 100%.
Okay.
If you simply replace the word gravity when you're confused with God, divinity, universal one, there's your answer.
Well, I want to go back to 756 where you just read, where it said desire is the basis of healing principle. For desire for normalcy will give you a normal body. And then it talks about the trees in Maine. And what he's referring to is the wind comes so strong off of the water that the trees a mile in grow straight up. But the one, when you get closer to the water and the coast, they start to point themselves towards the ocean, towards the wind. So that's where gravity is working with desire for the tree to survive, to thrive. Because if it's upright, the wind will just knock it down. So as gravity works with the tree, the desire force of the tree to sustain, to thrive, and it allows it to bend where it won't elsewhere. So that's how gravity works with you.
So I like that. Let me ask the panel a question then. So we know that rhythmic balance, love is rhythmic balance interchange. Am I saying that properly?
Yes.
Okay. So if we think about nature is always in balance, even Ken and I, when we were on our walk today, trying to take action to strengthen our body, right? We will watch trees that look like they're going to fall off the cliff, but somehow their root system has balanced them so that as they're falling off, their root system is balancing. So if you really begin to understand these principles, you can actually walk through nature and begin to see these principles in existence everywhere. Is that true?
It is true. Yeah. Let me point out an example on my property. I live right down at the water's edge. I have a stream running right through my property. Because I have a stream running right through the property, and the property is very wet, not a couple of swampy areas. I mean, I can drive around and move on it, but if you dig down 3 feet, you hit water. The end result of that is that the trees on my property set very shallow roots because they get all the water and minerals they need in a shallow situation, which speeds their growth. But the imbalance in that situation is that because the trees have shallow roots, when the wind blows, I have a lot of mature trees blowing over and dying because they didn't set the roots deep enough because it was too easy for them to get to water.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. John?
I was going to say, I hope that Jim at some point can get to the root of his problem there.
All right, so just continuing with the conversation here. So let's go on here down to the geometry of space. So John, let's dive into this because we have a few more pages and everyone's still hanging in there. I'm so thrilled to see you all from TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Thank you so much. And be proud of yourself because you're actually taking steps to fall in love with the universe. The geometry.
Can I say something before you get on to the geometry of space? Just on that note, for me, I studied the philosophy for a lot of years before I got into the science. It's not that I didn't read the science, but I really anchored on the philosophy. So again, as we're trying, this is why we're doing this. We get that this is sort of difficult concepts, But once you start to get them, like Kim said, it will become easier. You will become familiar. This language will help you to articulate those things that you could never express before. So just hang in there and trust in the process. And I sure wish in my 30 years that I had been able to ask some questions and have someone walking through that home study course and take some of the bumps out of the road for me. And that's what we're doing, is just trying to take the bumps out of the road and give you some application.
Thank you. So Rita says, thank you for these explanations. We want to encourage everyone to please ask questions. Very, very helpful with the conversation. And Dana says, great explanation. So thank you, Dana. That's what we aim to do. We are here to serve, and it is a joy for us here every Sunday evening to serve. All right. So John, now we're going to dive into the geometry of space.
Yeah, probably the least known aspects of science. They don't even know what the geometry of space is. But anyway, every orderly system must have an orderly basis for its construction, whether it be a little house or a skyscraper, one planet of a solar system, or the whole universe of countless solar systems. As light is the one thing of this universe, and the science of light is optics, the construction of the universe is not based on what the textbooks on optics tell you, nor upon what the textbooks on electricity and magnetism tell you. The Creator makes use of but two opposite curvatures of light waves as tools for creating this entire universe of visible light. With these two curved tools only, the centripetal spirals which compress light into heat and the centrifugal spirals which expand it into cold are created. And, if I might say, you can't put it any more simple than that. See, this is the basis, this is the foundation. So if you want to go into science research and so on, instead of just experimenting and dealing with effects all the time, but if you had this foundation of the outward and the inward and the cold and the heat and compression, expansion and cubes and spheres, then you could go at creating things knowingly instead of through experimentation.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you all, you know that I have the magnets experiment ready. It seems to me that we ought to go ahead and describe what it is, the figure 44 that we're seeing, and let's go ahead into what's on page 758, and then we'll bring up that experiment. So what are we looking at here?
Can I jump in on that?
By all means.
It simplified it for me when I was a new student. If you take that sphere and you turn it 90 degrees, you'll notice there's two incoming vortexes from the inert gases, the lenses of each octave, coming inward until they reach the point of maximum compression, which I've often pointed out is carbon. And then they begin their journey outward at the equator, and they create multiple bodies from the inward action until they are back to zero again.
Okay, so all right, so let's try this. So I'm Karen, and then I'm going to Ken.
Okay, so you have to see the circle, but you actually see there's other circles. So you have another circle coming into the circle. That creates what a lot of people will say the vesica Pisces, and the vesica Pisces is the piece that is the lens. And the lens is where the light comes in. It's the shape of the eye. It's the shape of even where women give birth. They're bringing light, giving another light to humanity, but it's also how your eye shaped.
And what's interesting about that is that the Vesica Pisces is actually very important in the Christian religion. So when you start to understand that some of these things have been tap danced in other religions, this is the scientific explanation to me, John, about how a lot of these things, it's actually all has to do with universal law.
Yeah. So then you need somebody to give it a practical application.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And Karen brings up the point about your eye. So if you want to really know how these lenses work, you pick up Lao Russell's book, Why You Cannot Die. And she spends a whole chapter on telling you the millions of years it took to develop the eye and how it works and how you take the visible universe, bring it in and through the cones and focus it. And Ken has mentioned this before, back to stillness. Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting. So I'm going to ask our behind the scenes team to do two things. If you'll please get the link to the posters on philosophy.org, straight to the periodic elements chart so everyone knows that, and also the link to the Why You Cannot Die book so we can have those on there. And what I really love here, and Ken, I'm going to ask you to comment, but it says right here exactly what John was describing under that description of figure 44. I have it in green highlight. God uses but two tools to create his curved universe of motion. With these, he creates centripetal spirals, which compress cold into heat, and the centrifugal spirals, which expand back into cold space. Ken.
Yeah, we just read that up above, which is what John said. Once you get the basis of compression, expansion, centripetal, centrifugal. So centrifugal is like when you go on those rides at the park and you ever see those spinning rooms in the wall, you kind of get pulled into that wall. That's centrifugal force. Centripetal force would be if that same motion would catapult you towards the center of the room. So that would be centripetal force. Those are the two tools that God uses to create this universe right there. Now, in this imaging right here, if you go back up a little bit there, James, you see these two on the right and left. John, show us your magnifying glasses real quick. Would you there, buddy? And you see that? That is what we said. There's one. That's one side of the sphere, and then the other one. John, hold up.
John, intersect your two.
Jenna, yeah, hold the other one out the bookends. There you go, like bookends. Now, put them to the side, if you will.
Yes.
Put them on side. That's what we're looking at. That's exactly what you're looking at in these spheres. And as Karen illustrated, those are multiple spheres. That's not just one. Those are two spheres joining. And in that joining, they create that bioconvex lens that John is holding up there. And now you can see how that's magnifying towards the center. And then the other 7 lenses that come in here, and this is a geometry of space, are going to be convex, right? So there are 7 convex and 2 bioconvex, right?
All right.
Concave, excuse me. The other 7 lenses are concave. These are called bioconvex. There's only 2 of those, but they magnify. So they're projecting. That's how they're taking long light waves. And just like that magnifying glass, it's turning them into short long waves. And then it's going into concave lenses, which then widen them back out, and each becomes the other. As you can see how they intersect, and the arrows tell you how that light is traveling through to manifest matter, if that makes sense.
All right.
Kimberly?
So yes.
And I think it's important for our audience to see these cubes.
Okay.
Because on that sheet, I mean, that screen that we just had,
yes,
the last 2 sentences were that we left out that
the mirrors of the cube's universe of non-motion and the lenses of light of motion constitute our entire universe.
There you have it. So those cubes of zero curvature that are in space, and maybe someday man will come to recognize them. But just I'm so proud of our audience to be in at this point so that they can know that the secrets of the universe are simple. And we can't say it enough. If you can read and count to 9, you can do what God does. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be able to do it better than he does, but you.
All right, Karen, your thought before we continue to page 758.
If you can go back so you can see it, if you actually look at the circle, what you're going to be able to also see is the reason you need the square. It needs a defining place. So if you think of an electromagnetic wave, there needs to be, I'm going to say, a container, a box, so it doesn't just go out and dissipate. So you need that. So if you keep extending that wave out and out and out, you will see that keeps it in a wave container. I know the wave boundary, but also I want you to also notice that one lens makes you look out and one lens lets you look in. So that's why one thing goes this way and the other goes this way. And so it allows you to see whether you're looking inward to God or outward to your world. That's how
There you have it. So you're looking at the creation of the sun. There it is. There's the 7 lenses right there.
Yeah.
So is the sun hot or is it cold, Kimberly?
It is cold.
Very good.
Woo! I get Russell bingo points. Woo! So So just for the record, for all of you that are new, so when you're a new student and you hear all these students talking like this all the time, and I like the first year or two, I was so confused because I was trying to learn all these terms. It was so much to learn. And I used to joke with them all saying that it should be like Russell Bingo. Now, when I get to answer a question, I literally have like this cosmic Russell Bingo card in my head. And now I can check them off, and I have all kinds of fun with myself and the creator. It doesn't take much to entertain me, just creation.
And say, hey, Kimberly, when you got nothing else to do, you can make a new bingo game out of the stuff. Well, that's when you have nothing else to do.
I can do that. I can do that. But here again, I want to say to everyone who's watching this now or in the future, part of what is so fun and what was so fun for me, remember when I first walked into the Russell Museum here in Waynesboro, Virginia, and I saw all of this, I saw the scientific illustrations. What I kept hearing from the creator was creation is child's play. Creation is child's play. And the thing is that when you really dive into this and you begin to understand this, this can become so fun and so magical. And you begin to walk through the universe with such a deep understanding of what's happening around you that you really begin to lose focus and you stop worrying about all the nonsense that's happening in what we call the 3D world and all the drama, because you're so enthralled by the majesty of the universe and all that's being created. So to me, to everyone that's listening, that's the exciting part, is get me out of the craziness and have me focus on the majesty of the universe. That is beautiful.
Kimberly, I think it's appropriate for one of Jesus's quotes, right? What I have done, ye shall also do, perhaps of greater measure. So when you know the secrets of the universe, the building blocks, the couple of tools that God uses to create, why can't you do it too? The only thing standing in the way is yourself.
So why don't we put, before we take our next break, everybody in the chat box, why don't you put down creation is exciting? So just remember, that's what it's about. So get past all of these principles. Don't get yourself all wrapped up. You are here in unit 10, almost to the end, but creation is exciting. Can we just celebrate the excitement of this for a moment? Because that to me is just an incredible joy. When we come back though, we have something very, very fun for you. We have something to show you, and we have magnets and a simple little card to show you the principle that's on page 758. That's going to be super fun for you. So let's go ahead and take our 3-minute break, stand up, stretch. We have fun stuff coming. Panel, please mute. All right, if you will find your way back, please. You know what you have no way of knowing as we're waiting for everyone to come back is in my corporate work, I've been talking about lenses for a really long time. And I've been talking about how it's many, many times in reality, we have lenses on, but we don't recognize we have them on. John has his lenses on. But what we don't realize is that sometimes it's important to take those lenses off, and that we've outgrown those lenses. And it's important for us to actually take them off, tear them up, and go on to something else. But we in life often don't do that unless a crisis forces us. So it's really fun for me that we're actually here once again talking about lenses, even if they are literal lenses. So let's go into 758 because this is fun stuff.
You know, what's funny is what you're representing now too is this is like putting on a new pair of glasses. This
It
whole
is.
study course is exactly like putting on a new pair of glasses.
It is. It changes the way we see the world. So in figure 44, which is the one that was above that we were just looking at with a circle, it demonstrates above. Go ahead and go show that one again up on the previous page. So that one right there, it says, demonstrates the love principle of rhythmic balanced interchange, which the curved universe eternally repeats. And then it goes on to talk about, okay, how nature arranges the lenses. So if you'll go on to this next image, page 758. Now, there's a couple of important things here. So first of all, right above it, if you'll scroll up a bit, it says there are 9 lenses, each one performing its own separate purpose. Now, while we were studying the home study course today, for those of you that have your copy, we recognize that the new special edition is missing something. And I want to bring something up here. I went back with the description actually refers to an image from the old home study course. And so for those of you that have your own home study course, I would encourage you to take a screenshot of this because this will help you. It will actually, because it has in the home study course, it refers to A, B, C, D, E, F. So just take a look at that. That seems to be a little fuzzy. I might need to get a clearer picture of that. But I want to just, and I'll go back to the home study course, James. So just bring this up because can we describe with the colored picture, what are we looking at, John? And then we can show the demonstration here.
Well, you're looking at one of the tools in which God creates images, things. So whether it's stars or trees or humans, whatever. Remember earlier, they said no matter what it is, the sequence is the same. The steps are exactly the same.
Yes.
All right. So these 9 lenses, you will see whether it's a corpuscle, red corpuscle in your body, or whether it's the sun. The sequence and the alignment of the lenses and what they achieve is exactly the same no matter what.
And there's no particle that fits in those lenses, guys. Get it? It's only light. Think about it. It's a light wave universe. There's no particle, guys, that fit in those lenses. None at all. Gases are not particle.
The particles and wave. What about the idea of a particle and a wave?
A wave is a corpuscle, and a wave is a corpuscle and a wave. It's not. There are no particles in there.
All right.
Light.
Okay.
Right.
So,
light wave and a corpuscle and a light wave. That's light.
What do you mean?
That's why it's an optical universe as opposed to a physical universe. It's about
what's a corpuscle?
All right. Can I go ahead and show our demonstration here?
Yeah.
I think it will help with this description. So, John, as I do this, I would like to ask you to please describe what it is that we're looking at. So, I have one magnet.
Right.
And I have a film that's made of some nickel. And so I'm going to do this and you describe what's happening.
All right. Isn't that interesting? So what people are seeing, even though without that page, you wouldn't be able to see it. You could see effects of it. But that center part, that you are looking at, that is God. And you have the left and you got the right. You can call it North Pole, South Pole, whatever. But the important thing is right there in the center is God.
Now, what's interesting for everybody who's looking at this for the first time, this came from Darren Cullum, our previous chief science officer at the USP. And then Margaret Rue donated this toy to me so we could have it online. So this is one simple magnet. I want to show this, one simple magnet. And they have this film. And so it shows the light. But John... Yes.
If you go to figure 45, it kind of shows you the same separation.
That's why I'm bringing it up right here,
Okay,
because
good
that's
girl.
what I wanted everyone to see it. So James, if we could show that again one more time to everybody, the image that's on page, that image 45 from the home study course. So you'll begin to see the curvature right there in the home study course. Now, if you will look at what I've done, okay, you begin to see the curve. This is what you see. Now, what's interesting is I can take now, I'm going to have two magnets. So now I just have put two magnets together, okay, two magnets together. So now there is a line, and I'm going to do the same thing. And John, what happened?
There you have it. Nothing's changed, has it? So you can put four magnets on there. You can put 8 magnets on there, and you'll still see God centering
all things.
Those
all right,
2
so
feet. Yes.
So let's continue.
And Hunt, do me a favor, turn that magnet horizontally just so we can see it on a horizontal view too, as opposed to vertical. No, the other way, love. The other way, horizontally. That's vertical. There you go.
Whoops.
There you go. So that now, when you look at go back to that seesaw and the waves we've shown of the things we're showing, you can see how that equatorial line never moves. It always is static. That's always where all motion extends from static, from stillness. And there's your stillness.
All right, so
stillness centers everything, and stillness is outside of everything, and that's the representation of it.
Now let's go to the third magnet. So I want to show you all, because if you think about it, if you have 3 magnets now, you would think that there would be 2 lines. If we follow this, okay, if we follow this as a human logic, but once we do this, look what happens. What happened, Jim?
It doesn't matter how big the object is. Everything is divided and centered by divinity at gravity, as a gravity shift. Doesn't matter size. Size doesn't matter.
All right, so now I've just added a fourth magnet. Okay, so I now have 4 magnets all right here. I'm going to do the exact same thing. So now it's just a larger field. So Karen, that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, but I still think that it looks like the concave lens and the convex.
It does.
It really does. One is looking inside, and the other is looking outward.
Yep.
So I just want, for everybody who's watching this, let's give us your impression there in the chat box. What are you thinking about this cool experiment? First time we saw it. John, first time you saw it, what was your impression?
I thought it was so cool because I was with Darren when he was he showed this to a couple investors, and there was a chief what was he? He was a nuclear engineer.
Okay.
And Darren did this experiment, but he didn't tell the guy, didn't know what he was seeing. And Darren looked at me and I looked at him, and I went like this. I nodded to him and said, tell him what he's seeing. Tell him that he's staring God right in the damn face. Don't be afraid of it. But it might have messed up the whole.
It could. You never do know. But when you first saw it, I want to go back to this, because for everybody, if you're watching this, so 1 magnet again, just like this. And so James, I'm going to ask you to bring up the home study course again, because it is just showing those curvatures. And so Karen, this is what I found so interesting. This is a straight magnet. There is no curve in this magnet. And yet here you begin to see that curve. And it begins, to me, bring this particular illustration more to life. Anybody else want to add anything?
Well, if you look at that bottom right hand black and white, if you just turn that thing 90 degrees, you'll see it right there. Yeah.
Yep.
The dumbbell nebula.
Like this?
There you go. Yes.
That's it.
All right. That's our fun tool. Give us all credit.
Bingo.
Say,
there's another bingo for you, Kimberly.
All right. Bingo. All right. So let's go ahead and continue. On page 759, I want to encourage everybody to please study this in much more depth at home. We're not able to get into that this evening because it is very, very detailed. I did want to go ahead and skip ahead, though, to page 760. And the team can certainly comment there. But it says this is where it goes into the wave. The more you know the wave, therefore, the better you can command it to do your bidding. So talk a little bit about that, team, about what does that mean? Because, you know, the genesis of so much of the Russell work is in the wave lies the secret of creation. So talk to me. What does this sentence mean?
Well, Kimberly, I was listening to Doc's lecture the other day, 52, and there was a lady in the audience that pretty much asked him to stop talking about the wave.
That would be a problem.
Yeah. So, the hair on the back of Doc kind of stood up, and as gently as he could, he tried to explain to her that nothing exists that the wave is not part of. And so he tried to demonstrate to her whether you were a poet and the meter in which you write, or a painter in which you paint in each stroke, so on and so forth. And then he went and described how he created the Mark Twain Memorial, those 26 figures, by using the cube and the sphere and the wave. So
let's talk about the wave though in just a moment, for just a minute, about how it relates to today's world, because I have to tell you how this really hit home for me is, how do we all think that we receive a phone call? How do we think we receive a text? How do we receive all of these things that float through the air? We're walking through, how do we receive our radio station? How do we receive the television station? How do we receive our favorite Netflix series? These are all waves, are they not?
Yes.
Condensers, and you got to remember, it's condenser and an expression. Signals being sent, and you got to have a receiver to capture that signal. So it's all about signal transmission. So it's a long wave is converted into a short wave when you condenser, and the condenser is in your phone.
But Karen, we see waves all over the place.
It's the electric spectrum. It is the spectrum of light, and that spectrum is the builder of everything.
What's really interesting is I actually have a poster that shows that there are elements, groups all within the United States that own different frequency bands. And so they own different wave bands. So I have a whole poster. I showed it to John when I first came in. A whole poster of people, corporations, entities that own various wavelengths in our skies. And so when you see that many people are competing for owning pieces of a wave universe, all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, bingo.
Yep.
We live in a wave universe.
Yes, we do.
You can see it in a tree blowing in the wind. Right, those limbs go back and they go forth. Well, it's a wave. It's oscillating back to as far as right as it can go, as far left, but it's equal in proportion. It doesn't go any less or any more. It always in proportion to the wave. So the wave can be seen in everything and anything. The golden ratio represents the wave. It is all representative of everything that you do. The wave can be seen in anything. That's as Doc says.
So Bonnie says it's fascinating that even with 3, 2, and 4, I can understand, but she's surprised that the light happen even with 3. That was very, very interesting there. And Bonnie's also commenting here, I find myself trying to figure out what the waves might be like, even while I'm doing the mundane, like brushing my teeth. Hey, I think that's very fun, Bonnie, when you start integrating all these things in your life.
Demonstrate. There you go. If she's brushing this way, or if she's brushing this way.
I got one for Bonnie. Here's one thing to think about. The wave travels just like the yin and the yang, and how it builds like the periodic table. When you walk down the street and you look at a tree, you'll see its spine. And as the leaves grow out and the tentacles grow out, those are the waves moving, growing, expanding. Those are the dendrites. And it's connecting, and it's actually reaching out to the light. It's literally waiting to just be sparkling into it. And it's what happens in your brain with your dendrites in your brain. It's in your hair. Actually, the wave comes into your hair and it crystallizes, and it actually gives you information. I'll show you a video on that.
I spend a lot of time trying to get waves in my hair, Karen, but that's a conversation for another
day. Well, there won't be much information coming in here, I can tell you that.
Well, think of throwing a rock in a steel pond, right?
Yeah.
Think of a steel pond, and you throw a pebble in it, and then all those radiating waves, that's the radar principle, along with all those waves go out, and for every low point, there's a high point equal in proportion until stillness returns. So the wave is to go from motion back to stillness, and from stillness back to motion.
Can I make a statement, a small correction? Waves do not travel. They oscillate, and they create the illusion of traveling.
Right.
Yes. All right. So, and just to let everyone who's listening, so part of what we all try to do for each other is that we try to stay very pure to what the Russell work says. Many of us have studied things from all over the world, but for this show, we work on very hard on staying pure. So we have actually asked each other to help keep each other accountable of when we're using Russellian terms. It's okay when we're not, but it's just simply to acknowledge that. And so thank you, Jim. Jim's trying to help us out. We're all trying to help each other be sure that we stay, because we're trying to honor the Russell work here. Fair enough, John?
Yeah.
That's why we call him Buddha.
That's not why he called me Buddha. He called me Buddha because I used to weigh 340 pounds.
They call him Bubba. That's why I call him Bubba, not Buddha. They call him Bubba.
Yeah, that was Bubba, not Buddha.
All right, so everybody just drink in the laughter with us. All this is fun. Now, please understand that our team spends an enormous amount of time every week preparing for these things. I know Ken and I had everything spread all over the kitchen here, all over the living room today, working all day long. Karen spends all day and another couple of days pulling together the video, which you're getting ready to see. I know John and Jim work very hard to think about the practical applications for this work. So this is a collaboration of love that we bring to you. So we do, good thing we love it, because it does take an enormous amount of work out of love, but it's not really work if it's done with love, right? So page 760. Let's go ahead and down, and I want to go where the green highlight is, and it was referring to the principles they were talking about, and it says this principle is true in all nature. For the one thing that gives continuity is growth. Nature grows, and there are no exceptions in her processes. Every tree in the forest, every flower in the garden is tubular until it fills its holes. The oak, mahogany, and ebony are a few examples. This even applies to growing animal bodies. Every bone is tubular, and they go on to talk, even the arteries are also tubular. So let's talk about this moment about continuity is growth. We all understand that in nature. How many of us have ever mowed our yard and we're shocked that the yard needs to be mowed again in no time? Or we pulled weeds and we've cut back bushes, and then all of a sudden it seems like nature has just taken over. So this principle is one that we all live. We understand this. Nature grows, and so there's always this desire for growth. If we leave a house abandoned, it will grow over, right, Jim?
Yes, I have several around me that are quite lost in the woods and vines, the empty homes that have been deserted.
So we have this desire for growth. And what was interesting talking about the tubular, so even Ken and I, as we were walking today, picking up different things in nature, everything was tubular. And Karen, I know you bring this up in your video as well. Everything was tubular, filling out.
Well, it's the channels for which the information channels through our bodies. It's where the light, the blood, the lifeblood moves through. It's the part that sparks. It's the part that feeds the mitochondria. It's the part that, it's where the light goes.
All right. So we've got
a line here, love. Can I read
Yes.
a line real quick about
love.
this here? Food intakes, tubes, and bowels press outward from within to give back to earth. Think about it. It makes fun and it sounds funny, but the reality of it is it's all tubular. The bowels give out back to earth for repetition of that which has been given to them for the same purpose. So the food we take in is the food we let out. And it all goes through a tubular throat, down through the tubes, and as your stomach's a tube, into your intestines, which is a bunch of tubes. As a matter of fact, 300 yards of tube in your intestines, right, John? How many in there? Our intestines go a long ways, 300 yards or is it 100 yards?
I think it's the size of a football field.
Football field, yeah, 100 yards. I think that's it. So it's 300 feet. So yeah, anyway, that's tubular. So that tube that generates is really important and not that hard to understand. And the tubes close in on themselves to create density, and they open up on themselves to go back to whence they once came, to return to their journey in which they started.
All right. Love
rest.
it. So we are almost down to the end here. And thank you very much, Karen Mahan. She says, thank you all so much. And we would say thank you for tuning in. It is an absolute joy to do this. And so let's go down to 761, because there's some important things here. Right there, James. It says in that paragraph where I have the red circle, it was talking about the evidence, and it said here also is irrefutable evidence to prove that atoms have no such nuclei as nuclear physicists believe. The textbooks and science articles picture all atoms as true spheres, even to their electrons. Nature's processes do not work that way. When they do become true spheres, their centers do not act like the glue which holds them together. They thrust outward with increased resistance to their compressed condition. Interesting. All right. Anybody on the panel need to say anything about that? I thought
Well,
it
I
was
pointed
important.
out before, aging is an example of that. My atomic structure is not perfectly round. I passed midlife. I'm radiating at a faster rate. My cells are radiating at a faster rate than they're generating. It's the re-give side of life. We call it age and death. My atoms are not the same in structure, overall structure, as far as being spheric, perfectly spheric, as a 10 or 12 or 14-year-old. Theirs are more leaning towards perfect sphere. Mine are leaning toward ovation, away from perfect sphere.
So the next time I see you, Jim, if you tell me that my atoms are looking rather ovation-like, I'm going to be upset.
I
All
wouldn't
right.
never say
Well,
that to
like
anybody.
talk about the decaying tree, love, right? When you look at a tree that's broken over, that's broken from being rotted, in the inside, it's vacuous, and it's getting more vacuous from the center out, not from the outside in. So it starts from the outside in and then goes from the inside out. Again, the sequence of compression expansion.
And that's true of people with brittle bones. With brittle bones,
Yeah,
they're
the bones
dying
open up.
Yes. Yes. All right. Last few thoughts here. So in closing, this discussion of the place which lenses fulfill in the creative process. So this is right above. This is right towards the bottom of page 761. Scroll. Go up a little bit, James. It's that paragraph above this picture where I've had it highlighted. In closing, this discussion of the place which lenses fulfill in the creative process, we print two more diagrams. So figure 46 right there is a diagram which gives emphasis to the tremendous thrust of radiation given forth from the sun to create a gravity field. And the one at the bottom, which ends this particular unit there on page 762. This is a lovely illustration, one of my favorites. Go on down. And it says this diagram, again, pictures the 9 lenses of the sun, which make of this curved universe a multiplier and divider of light. Its white center represents the father-mother oneness of the static universe of invisible light. So I'm going to go back to our little demonstration with the magnets here. And John, if you would, continue to talk about what this one means.
Well,
that's
I'm
what I
not
mean,
sure
right
what
there
you're-
on the screen. I'm just right there on the
Oh,
screen,
it is.
turning it horizontal.
Yes, exactly. So whether it's a magnet or a sun, the sequence and the pattern is exactly the same.
Think about
There
it this
is
way
no-
too. John, here's a thought. Do that back again, Kimberly. That's also your Earth. You have an equator, and you've got a North Pole and a South Pole, and it flows in one direction. The water flows in, and on the other one, the water flows out. So it twists, and it also twists. One goes to the left side, one twists to the right side. And you can see that, and everything from the solar system to a galaxy to a drop of water all has that same magnetic field. It has what they call a dipole nature, which is
So
two poles.
the important thing, Kimberly, here is to just keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
9 lenses.
Keep it simple.
9 lenses. All right. And each lens, whether it's concave, biconcave, convex, biconvex, each performs a certain function. All right. So you're either compressing or you're expanding. That's it. Or you're doing both simultaneously.
All right. So
I see this a little bit bigger when you add the more. So as the universe expands, God gets bigger. The center gets a little bit bigger.
So that's a very interesting thought there.
Yeah.
No, God doesn't get bigger.
Well, it looks like it in the magnet. There's like a sandwich in there. It's like now you got 2 slices of ham.
Remember, it's just light. It's an illusion. It's magnified. That's all.
Well, I see what Karen is saying is that when you're looking at it and you can see this, so she's saying that the light just gets bigger and bigger. So that's what it is.
All right, I got you.
What we can see is it seems to get bigger, but it is all light. So that's part of the illusion. So it's the same process. So from 1, okay, and it's not necessarily that God's get bigger and bigger. It's just the fact that we can see it get bigger and bigger.
Just like the oak tree's big and the rose is small, right? But the construct is always the same.
All right, this is such fun stuff. So everyone, please stay tuned for our visual journey. We've got a couple of fun announcements afterwards, so stay tuned. But enjoy the gift of love that Karen has provided
Yeah,
for us
she did a
once
good one
again.
tonight.
It's another lovely video. Tune in.
Yep.
So comments from the panel right quick about the video, if you'll come off mute.
That was well done. That was really beautiful, Karen. You did a great job. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. I like the way you're using the film and the projector. That really, God, it's just, it's almost like makes sense of everything we just said. Good job.
Yeah, these visuals are stunning, and we're so grateful. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure doing it.
Your concepts are good. You are really grooving. That's good stuff. That's awesome stuff.
All right, see all the good things there. And you know what I look at it is that it makes so much sense when you see the motion. You know, when you think about what Walter and Lao dealt with and trying to explain these very complex subjects in the 1950s when they didn't have computers, they didn't have all the motion, they didn't have the holographics, they didn't have some of these things. It's pretty magnificent that they captured it as a gift to us. And then, wow, when you're able to put motion to it, Karen, it just makes everything come to sense. So, all right, just a couple of things for you as we wrap up here. We do have one question I want to pull up. Dana did ask a question. I want to be sure we ask that. So if you would, he was asking about, is the gravity stronger? So when we were talking about gravity stronger, panelist, what does the answer to that? Is the gravity stronger? I guess when we were putting the magnets together.
The gravity is unchanging. It's God.
Okay.
But the spiral motion. So if you're compressing, right, your heating is moving faster. You might want to say that it's more powerful and getting stronger. But then the opposite effect that is the unwinding, where it gets weaker the further that it goes out. But gravity is a constant, unchanging. It's God.
All right. Thank you.
The magnetic force will get stronger when you multiply them. But again, the fulcrum remains the same. The way it's set up, as John is saying, it's still God. But if you stack 4 magnets together, they're going to attract a lot more filaments than if you just put 1 magnet there. Does that make sense?
That's your lens that amplifies.
Yes. All right, so just a couple of announcements for you as we go through. If you'll take a look here at slide 13, here we are. You are down to the last lesson from Unit 10. So Ken will be facilitating that session next week as I will be out of town, and you will be finishing Unit 10 next week. How exciting is that? I did want to give you a quick look here. We wanted you to look at April, what's happening in April. We'll be covering Unit 11. If you don't have a copy of your home study course, then please be sure to get a copy of your home study course. You can take a look at that and continue to make your notes as we move forward through this. And then May will be Unit 11. Take a snapshot here of what is in April. If you'll see on the next slide, that is what's covered in Unit 11. So you may want to take a screenshot of that so that you have that handy. We have been rolling out as a gift to everybody, you know, our extra programs. That's what's happening during the week. We moved them to Wednesdays. Ken just did his this past Wednesday, and we had a terrific response to that. It is available there on our Awaken Your Inner Genius channel, the YouTube channel. When you look at the playlist, you will actually see a playlist for all of the things that we call extras. So that was pretty magnificent. If our team hasn't had a chance to see it yet, I saw it, and of course I may be just a smidgen biased, but he did an incredible job. We had lots of incredibly feedback about that. So this coming week, we have Jim on the docket. So Jim will be talking here on this Wednesday night, 7 p.m. And Jim, you want to give everybody just kind of a peek into what you'll be talking about Wednesday?
Well, we'll be talking about the Divine Iliads by Walter Russell. And remember, this was his download direct from source. So I recommend studying it and reading it to anybody. And I am not the one to be given that recommendation, because I did not read these books in their entirety until just the last year or so. So, but what it did is it woke me up to the beauty and the poetry that is given here, direct from Creator to us.
All right, love that. And then after that, after Jim, the week after, John will be talking about the lecture series, which we'll share more about. And after that, Karen will be talking about water. The nature of water and plasma. So these are just extras, the way we can serve you. You might even be seeing Ken pop on live a little more often, just to help continue to build our numbers and the reach for the live audiences. So we want to say a gracious thank you to you all. You are certainly able to still continue donating. You can use the super chats. You can see what it is, even buy me a coffee. We want to say a gracious thank you. We have some fun things to share with you in the upcoming weeks of donations that were made to Awaken Your Inner Genius. Most important, importantly, out of everything that needs to be said is just the fact that you have an amazing ability to change the world just by what it is that you're doing. And Jim, if you would just remind everyone, what did Doc and Leo say that about that whole issue of 10 people?
If you, what Dr. Russell was thinking, communing with creators, that how am I, this lone artist, going to get this message out to the world? And the response was, give it to 10 who you can inspire to give it to 10, and it will rise up like a wall of granite beneath your feet and surround the world. That's what he did. They accomplished that. Now it's our job to continue that giving. Every student.
Any final words, John or Ken?
Legions of cosmic thinkers. That's what we're trying to create here.
All right. Ken, any final thought?
No, everybody did great. Everything is good.
All right, everyone. Have a great week. We're not going to say goodbye. We'll say until next time.